Okay, how's it going? Um, so, as I promised, this is a video going over the first major writing project. So, the essay which you are writing a rough draft for this week. And I talked about the rough draft in the other video I put out, and then you will turn in the final copy at the end of next week. Okay? Um, so, I wanted to just kind of talk a little bit about how to go about analyzing a website. A lot of this, you've kind of already read in the book, but I wanted to kind of put it all together, um, talk about kind of the expectations for this paper, um, and give you a better idea of like what it is that I am looking for. Okay. Um, so when you analyze a website, and as you prepare to write both the rough draft and the final draft, these are the questions that I want you thinking about. Okay, what is the context? What claim or argument is the website making? How effective is that claim? What criteria are you using to evaluate that claim? And which specific elements of the website are you analyzing? Okay, so let's go through these one at a time. Oh, gotta move me. There we go. So first, what is the context? And by this, we're referring to kind of the rhetorical context. So when you consider the rhetorical context, you want to determine audience and writer first, right? So uh, let's start with writer, right, or the person who is in charge of the website. So what is it? What do you know about the person or the organization who runs the website? Do they have some kind of agenda or bias that you can find? Now, I don't mean that necessarily in a negative way. I know that kind of those terms, agenda and bias, have kind of negative connotations nowadays, but really everybody has bias, right? Um, we all want something or we all believe something that kind of colors the way that we see the world, and we might not see the world the same as other people, right? And so if there's something like that that you can identify, um, about the group or you know, um, or the person who runs the website or who's in charge of the website, that'd be good to recognize. So, for example, if they're part of some larger organization, if they have, an affiliation with anybody else, if they have donors or something, you know, if they're being funded by a certain thing, do they list any certain values that we should keep in mind while analyzing what it is that they have to say, things like that. And then, or I should say that some of that you might be able to find on the website itself if they have, an about us section, right? Or goals or whatever. It depends on the type of website that you're looking at. Some of it you might have to, do some background research, see if you could figure out who's in charge. If you can't find it, you know, that's okay. But just, try, see if there's something that you can find. Um, and then next we talk about audience, and we want to see if you can figure out who the target audience is, right? Who's the website meant to persuade? Um, and so, websites are designed with a certain clientele or to attract a certain clientele. And if we can try to analyze and see, who that is, right? Who this website is meant to attract or to persuade, that's worth analyzing. Now that you might have to do some analysis on your own, right? Some websites might announce this and they'll say like, this is for people in a certain area, or people from a certain demographic, right? Especially, for things like, I don't know, like um, medical websites. My brother actually works as a writer for a company that designs websites, and he works with a lot of doctors, and you know they're always really specific about the clientele that they want, right? They want to make sure that the website is, um, targeted to people in a certain area or community, so that it shows up in Google searches and whatnot. And then also, certain demographics, certain ages, or, types of people, I guess. So, that's something to keep in mind as well as you consider, um, the rhetorical context. Okay. Next, I gotta move myself again. I really need to, keep this in mind when I design these slides. But here we go. So next is, what claim or argument is the website making? So think back to, the very first chapter of our textbook, and remember how your textbook introduces argument, and it's a claim supported by reasons. And websites, really all, for the most part, all language is really trying to get you to think a certain way or to do something, right? It's always kind of changing you in some way. Um, and might be subtle, might be obvious, but websites work the same way. I mean, this is how language works, right? Or has a social effect on us. Um, so in the case of these websites that you're analyzing, they want you to do something, right? They're trying to persuade you of something, and it might be to take a certain action, or it might just be to change the way that you think about a certain thing, right? But in some way, they're trying to move the people who are on the website. As I said, sometimes this is obvious, right? Like if you're on Nike's website, it's pretty obvious what Nike wants you to do. They want you to buy their shoes or their clothes or their, sporting goods, whatever it is, right? Their products. They're trying to move product. That's pretty easy, right? But some websites, especially ones that you might find, they might be more subtle, right? It could be that they want you to spend your time there, right? If it's a social media site like Facebook, Reddit, Instagram, whatever it is, it's designed to get you to use the site, right? Um, Sometimes it might be to get you to join an organization. Earlier in the semester, I asked you to analyze the University of Houston's webpage, and one way that you can analyze that is to say that the website is designed to get you to apply to UH, right? This is pretty clearly designed to get new students to come, right? Um, or to like appreciate a topic, right? So I know that I'm asking that you pick a website that's tied to your uh, particular major or profession, right? Future profession. And so, it might be a kind of specialized thing, if you're looking at, for me, I'm an English major, right? And so if I look at some of these that are, some of these websites that might be designed around books or, um, famous authors or, these literary organizations, things like that, it might be to get you to appreciate a certain topic or, um, take an interest in the thing that the website is designed around, right? It might be, again, it might be arguing that, arguing for the importance of a given topic, right? Um, on the other hand, some websites might be trying to um, argue for how they present themselves, right? And I'll go back to, well, really all of them kind of do this, but they're all trying to present themselves in a certain way, right? If we think about UH, part of how they get new students there is they want to present themselves as you know, how would we describe a university, right? They want to be prestigious, they want to be important, but they also want to, um, project this image of like a community, right? Just campus life, they're selling you the college experience basically, right? They're selling you the college experience plus they're selling you the professionalism that you'll need to get a job, right? Um, Nike, right? When we talk about Nike clothing, yes, they want you to buy this clothing, but they're also projecting a certain uh, image, right, or an identity, right? You know, champions use Nike, right? We might say, or people that care about fitness or whatever it is, right? Um, their image is something that they're trying to sell, that they're trying to convince you of. So this is another way to think about the argument. What or how rather um, is the person or organization trying to present themselves, right? What image are they selling or trying to persuade you of? Um, so yeah, that is another way to consider that. Whoops. Next, how effective is that claim? Let's move me back. Let's keep going back and forth. So this question, how you answer this question, is going to be part of your main argument, and your answer to this question probably should appear in your thesis statement. So remember, this is something that people should be able to argue about. As our rhetorical practice discussion boards show, questions like this can lead to disagreement. So, making sure that you have an arguable claim, if I were to say, for example, In-N-Out is an S tier and Whataburger is a B tier, based on what I've read through the discussion boards, I'd probably, find a lot of you that disagree with that claim. You're all wrong, of course. I'm kidding. I'm from California. I gotta defend In-N-Out. But no, I mean, questions like these they don't have some kind of objective answer, right? There isn't really a right answer. It all depends on, how you create your argument, right? So we can argue about these things, about which fast food joint is better than the other, or whether whether milk in cereal is a beverage, a broth, or a sauce, right? We can argue about these things, and even though many of you will agree, there's a lot of different perspectives that we can take. And so this is kind of how I want you to think about your thesis statement, right? Is you're making a claim about the effectiveness of this website, and it should be one that people can disagree with, right? You make a strong argument, but it's not an objective fact, right? Because if you're writing about something that's objective, that everybody's going to agree with, why do you need to write about it, right? Because nobody's going to disagree, nobody's going to care. Your goal is to convince people, to persuade, and to do that you have to take something that people might disagree with. Okay. So yeah, how effective is that claim? The website is trying to persuade you of something. The website is making an argument. How effective is that argument? This is like the first part of your thesis, right? And then being able to explain why the website is or isn't effective in making its argument is like the next part of your thesis, right? This is the claim you're making in your argument, and then the rest of the paper will be your reasons behind that. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. By the way, before I forget, when we talk about context, context will probably be what goes in like the introduction. I would recommend using context to kind of lead into the essay. Now, as far as like organization goes and the order that you do everything, I'm not super particular. Okay, if you have a good idea of how to put this all together in a way that makes sense to you, run with it. This is just kind of my suggestion if you're struggling. Okay. Start with the context, what drew you to the website, what you know about the context, then, lead into the argument that they're making, how effective that argument is, and the reasons for that effectiveness. Okay. Next is criteria. Okay. So after we have how effective is the claim, we have, okay, now what criteria are we using to evaluate the claim that the website is making? And so remember our discussion boards on fast food restaurants, right? The tier list that I had you guys do. When you were, rating these different fast food locations, right? These different fast food restaurants, I asked you to keep in mind the criteria you were using in order to make your decisions, right? And from what I've read so far, I mean, you guys did a good job of that, right? You were able to say like, oh, well, I value this restaurant because of convenience, or I value taste above everything else. I saw that a few times, and so I've listed these based on what tastes the best. And so that's kind of the same thing I want you to think about here when you're analyzing the website, right? As you analyze and evaluate the claim that the website is making, right? Because again, they're making some kind of argument. Um, what matters to you when you talk about how effective that claim is going to be, right? Um, what is it about the website, or what is it about websites in general, or arguments in general, that you value when we try to think about, okay, does this website work or not? Um, Now, there's many different criteria that you might pick here. Um, we could talk about things like ease of use, organization, style, right? Overall design, maybe it's credibility, um, you know, uh, or, you can think about what the criteria are that um, would lead you to not trust a website, right? And, sometimes one criteria can make or break a website, right? You'll see sometimes a website will be subpar in a lot of ways, but there might be that one thing that raises it above the rest, right? Like a good Yelp score, maybe, or you know, on the contrast, there might be a website where everything is fine, but they make a lot of spelling mistakes, or some of the links don't work, you know, or they have too many pop-ups or something like that, and you're just like, all right, screw this website. Um, so make sure that if there are some elements like that, that you point those out. But yeah, try to figure out what criteria you're using here. Um, again, things like design, things like the pictures that they use, right? Things like just being up to date, right? If a website is really old and outdated, we might not trust it as much, right? Or, it could even be like the font that they use. If they use Comic Sans, for example, or like a lot of weird colors, or, something like that, it might turn you off of it. Um, so yeah, try to list out, just like we did for the fast food discussion. Try to list out, or at least be aware of the criteria that you value when you're making this evaluative judgment. Okay, um, that's going to be really important. Now, that leads us to the specific elements of the website. Okay, so developing your criteria is good, right? And saying, like, being aware of what you value when you are analyzing a website. But then you want to be able to apply those criteria to something specific, right? So, for example, you might say that the website is easy to use and navigate, right? And you could say that ease of use is an important criteria for you when you analyze a website's rhetorical effectiveness. But what specifically about the website makes it easy to use? Is it the organization of information, right? Maybe like the way the page is laid out, um, that could contribute to ease of use. Um, it could be like the drop down menus, right? The way the menus are organized, or the way the links on the page are set up, right? Does it have like a menu that kind of pulls out and you have a bunch of options, or does it have something up on the top where you have a bunch of different links that you can click on? And then do those links make sense, right? When they picked, how to organize and separate the different pages, does that all make sense? By the way, that's what I mean by hyperlink organization. Is just, hyperlinks are the links that you click on that take you to different pages. Does all that make sense? Or perhaps it's the writing itself. Again, this is a writing class. I do want you to do some analysis of the writing, the language itself. So keep that in mind. Um, But yeah, it could be that the writing is just really good quality, and it's clear, it's easy to understand. Um, it helps guide you through everything. That could contribute to ease of use. I mean, there are other criteria that you could evaluate the writing on, but again, when you say that you have a criteria um, that you are evaluating on, what about the website specifically can you point to help you develop that, or support your statement, right, or your claim that you're making? Okay. Um, so yeah, be ready to pick out some specific elements about the website and explain why those lead you to judge the website the way that you do. Um, so when we talk about specifics, we can point to text, right? Again, writing class, I want you to look at the writing. But what can you say about the written elements of the text? Do they seem appropriate for the context, right? When we talk about, um, the rhetorical context, when you compare like uh, the the writer with the audience, right? Um, does the writing seem to match that context when we talk about like tone or style, um, or even just content, right? For an example, if we were to say something like the University of Houston website, um, they are trying to present themselves as being very, professional. So it probably wouldn't look very good if the website had misspellings in the text or maybe included a bunch of profanity, um, or things like that. That's probably not appropriate, right? And we can say, okay, well, that, kind of detracts from how effective this website is. Um, Same thing with visuals, right? How do the images, colors, audio, does the website have video on it on the page, or even just design, right? How everything is kind of structured, font, text size, things like that. Any kind of like I don't know, toolbars or anything that pops up on the page. You know, how how does all this stuff look? How would you characterize the tone of the visuals, let's say? Or how would you characterize the page based on the visual elements? Would we say that it's new? Is it outdated? Is it inviting to a reader? Is it comforting? Is it exciting? Right? And then why do you think it's, or what makes it that, I guess? Okay. Again, we can also look at organization, how the website organization or structure makes it easy or difficult to browse, to find information, to actually get use out of it, right? Um, Sometimes a website might have really good elements, but the organization sucks and you can't find anything, and that could make you look somewhere else for whatever it is that you were that you were looking for, right? Um, some more specifics again. Remember to think about things like ethos, logos, and pathos. Ethos again refers to credibility. This is I guess you could say, like, character of the website. So, does the website try to argue that they're credible, trustworthy, or qualified? You might say this is bragging, right? So if the website has an about me, or talk about like awards that they won, or how popular they are, or things like that. That could be an example of ethos. Now, um, ethos could also be argued for subtly, or appealed to subtly, right? Because presentation is part of ethos, right? Um, how a website looks, right, can help determine whether or not you find it credible. Um, does it have all the things that a good professional website should have? In other words, right? Logos, does the website include any kind of data or logical reasoning. Now data, statistics, graphs, that kind of thing is what people usually think about when we talk about logos. But logos also covers like logic, all right? And by logic, what I mean is like logical reasoning, right? So, you know, making arguments that follow a certain like logical consistency or logical structure, okay? And then pathos is there any content designed to play on emotion, and emotion doesn't just mean, uh, you know, sad or anything like that. I mean, it can be compassion, pride, patriotism, anger. Um, you'll see, for example, certain car websites or automobile sales websites will say things like "Made in America," right? A lot of products will say that they are made in America, and I think that is meant to play to a feeling of patriotism, right? If you care about this country, then you will buy this product, right? That sort of thing. But again, it could be pride in a certain community or in a certain profession, compassion to other people. It can be anger about a certain thing, right? Um, and anything that's meant to kind of provoke an emotional response falls under pathos. Um, okay, one final thing that I wanted to talk about is be ready to select some examples to include in your essay. Make sure you can point to specific things, and more than just point to specific things, as I talked about here, right? Like, what are the specific elements that you're talking about? Be ready to actually pick some specific things to then include in your essay. Okay, so as a reminder, the prompt for this essay asks you to include visual features and details such as color, design, and images, as well as short quotations from any verbal elements of the site. You will also include 2 or more images from your site to illustrate and support your argument. So that means that I would like you to either take screenshots or save images from the website itself, right? And that can be anything. I mean, you could use a picture to show uh, to show how the page is organized, right? To show like the layout of like the menu items or something like that, or just like the any images or whatever's on the page, right? When anything that you think is worth talking about, as well as quotations from some of the writing. Okay, so keep that in mind as you study your websites, and be ready to include that. Again, you will include that in the essay itself. Okay, you don't have to worry about it for the rough draft, because again, I want you to do like a free write rough draft, so you don't have to talk about any of that or include any of that in that. But for the final draft, I will be expecting this. Okay, so make sure that you have some of that. So again, pick 2 screenshots and that will help explain your argument to your reader. These can be for your main overall argument or to support a smaller claim that you are making. It can be used to just kind of show the audience or show your audience what you're talking about when you analyze something specific, whether it's a visual element, a design element, organizational, structural, whatever it is. And then also pick out a few quotations that you can use to support your analysis. And that can be, used for anything. It could be an example of like the style. I just noticed I'm covering that up. There we go. But yeah, it could be, an example of style, anything that the book talked about as far as like, metaphor or parallel structure, or, do they use a lot of complex sentences? Do they vary the sentence length? You could look at things like word choice, right? If they have a certain preference for types of words over others, or if they're trying to create a certain tone, right? The book talked about tone. But it can also be used to you can also use them if there's anything that fits with any of these, right? If there's a about us section that talks about that you think is an example of ethos. You might include a quotation of it to really help show why that's ethos, or especially pathos. Um, yeah, I mean, really anything that you think would help, um, to give to your reader, right? Because again, you're talking about, or you're writing about a website that your reader may or may not have seen. So to actually be able to pull examples from that website and say, okay, here's exactly what I'm talking about, and then analyze it, um, it makes it easier on your reader, okay? And it can also make it more effective, in proving your point, okay? Um, so that's about it for this video. All right, right out of 30 minutes. That's not too bad. Trying to keep these short. I know sometimes I get a little long-winded, um, but yeah. So that's kind of the deal for this essay. I hope that kind of helped you get an idea for the things that I'm expecting. Um, Again, have, or be ready to explain the context when we talk about the your introduction. This should definitely include some contextual information about the website itself, about how you got to it, or kind of the relationship between the writer, the audience, right? Then being able to explain what claim the website is making, being able to explain how effective that claim is. Remember, this is kind of going to be your thesis statement. It will be, something like this website effectively argues that blank by doing blank, something like that. And then again, the next part will be the criteria and the specific elements of the website that lead you to that criteria, right? So again, the example that I gave was ease of use. What specifically contributes to ease of use, if that's important to you? Okay. So yeah, hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, if there's something I didn't explain clearly, or if you want any more detail or specifics on my expectations or anything like that, or if you want to run an idea by me, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can, okay? That's it for now. Good luck with the rough draft, and yeah, have a good week. See ya.